and correlation. See, in last class we had discussed about variables. We have continuous variables, we have discrete variables, right? So whenever we have data available on different variables, like we have data available on age of students, and we can have data available on weight of students, right? Now, if you are, for example, 10 or 12 students in your classroom, we can record age as well as height of every student of your class, or we can record height and weight of the students. Now, when we have data, now your age, your height, and your weight. Now, if we take any two variables, let's suppose we will take height and weight. Both height and weight, they are both continuous variables. We have discussed in the last class what we mean by continuous variable. Now, if we want to establish the relationship between these two variables, what is the relationship between height and what's the height and weight? For that purpose, we have the statistical tool which we use is we have regression analysis and we have correlation analysis. So we will be discussing these two topics today. In regression analysis, what we do is we try to establish some functional relationship between the variables. Now, whenever we say variables are further, categorized as, we can say whether the variable is dependent or whether it is independent. Now, if we take weight and height, weight is dependent on height. Height is not dependent on weight, right? I said that weight is dependent on height. Height is not dependent on weight. So when we say, because as we say, as the height will increase, weight will also increase. Or if the height will decrease, weight will also decrease. But we don't say that if weight will decrease, height will also decrease. So vice versa, we don't say. So that means weight we can say as is a dependent variable, and height we can take as an independent variable. So in regression analysis, we should know which one is our independent variable and which one is our dependent variable, because it's important to establish the functional relationship when we know which one is dependent and which one is independent. Now, it's a functional relationship between two or more variables is called as regression. When only two variables are involved, the functional relationship is known as simple regression. So when we say only two variables, by only two variables here we mean one is dependent and one is independent. So there is only one independent variable, only then we can say that it's called as simple regression. Now, if the relationship between two variables is a straight line, it's called as simple linear regression, because sometimes when we plot the data on a scatter plot graph, you may get a curved line. So that's a non-linear relationship. But if you get a straight line, it's called as linear regression. So you have simple linear regression and we have multiple linear regression. For simple linear regression, we say that we have two variables. One is independent and one is dependent. But for multiple regression, we have one dependent and we can have more than one independent variable. So we can have the independent variables can be 2, 3, or 4. That we will discuss. Now, what's regression model? As I said that if we have variables with us, we try to establish the relationship between the variables, because if there is a change in a particular variable, there will be a change in the another variable. So to examine that change, we use the regression model. So regression analysis is designed for situations where a variable is thought to be related to one or more other measurements made usually on the same object. Now this is important. made usually on the same object. It means that if I am a student and you need to record my height, you had to record my weight. It's not that height will be mine and weight will be somebody else. So you have to record both these variables on the same object. So a purpose of the analysis is to use data, observer values of the variables, to estimate the form of relationship. Now see data concentration. As I said that in a regression analysis, we have dependent variable and we have independent variable. By independent variables, variables that can either be set to a desired value or else take values that can be observed but not controlled. So such variables we take as independent variables. Now by dependent variable, as a result of changes that are deliberately made or simply take place in the variables, an effect is transmitted to a variable called the response or predicted or dependent variable. Now, as I said, if we take height, now if the height goes on changing, there will be change in the response. That response is our dependent variable. Now the question is why we use regression. In order to study the relationship between a variable of interest and one or more variables that may be connected with the variable of interest. That's why we use, to study that relationship, we use this regression. So variable of interest is your response. There are different names for this dependent variable. We also call it as dependent variable, or we call it as response variable. For a independent variable, we use it as the term explanatory variable or independent variable. Now let's see the model. Now this is the equation. You can see it's yi equal beta naught. We call it as beta naught. The 0 is written as the subscript. We usually read it as beta naught. So beta naught plus beta 1 xi plus epsilon, or we call it as error. Now what these terms mean, y is the value of the ith case of the dependent variable. As I said that we have a dependent variable and an independent variable. Now here in this case, y is your dependent variable. This x is your independent variable. And these beta naught and beta 1, we call them as coefficients. These we calculate on the basis of these, the data we will be having available on xi and yi. Now we make certain assumptions. Whenever we use regression model, we make certain assumptions for this error, which is your, this EI, we call it as epsilon error I. So the assumptions which we have, we call that it has a normal distribution about mean. It has the variance is same, errors are independent. So these are certain assumptions which we make while using the regression model. So yesterday we discussed about population and sample. As I said, we don't study population as a whole, we study sample. So on the base of the sample, which we'll be having now, yesterday we talked about, we have the population of the students of the Kashmir University, they are my population. And if I take a small portion of that population, small sample, from a small part of that population, which we call a sample. So we will study that sample, and on the basis of the sample, we will draw inference for the population. Yesterday, we discussed about mean. Mean of population is denoted by mu. But if we have to study the mean of the sample, that's denoted by x bar. So same way here. Now you have Greek letters for population, beta naught and beta 1. These are the Greek letters which we use to denote the population. And if we have to estimate these beta naught and beta 1, which we do usually on the basis of the sample, we rewrite this equation as y hat equal to beta naught plus beta 1 xi. This we will see how we do it all this. Now, since we have to calculate these beta naught and beta 1, which we estimate which we calculate on the basis of the data available with our dependent variable and independent variable. Dependent variable is your y, independent variable is your x. Now the formula which we use to calculate all these things, for beta 1 we use the formula. Now this is the these equations which we call as summation beta 1 is equal to summation of xi minus x bar, then within brackets we have yi minus y bar. This numerator term we call divided by n minus 1. This numerator term we call as covariance, and in the denominator we have summation of xi minus x bar and square divided by n minus 1 and whole square root. This we call as variance. And in simpler terms, we write it as B1 is equal to covariance upon variance. Then covariance in turn is equal to summation of xi minus x bar, y minus y bar. Then beta naught. Beta naught we write as y bar minus beta 1 x bar. Yesterday I told you that we need to have certain basic knowledge about mean and variance. So now see, we have here y bar. Hope you know how to calculate mean. When you have the data on dependent variable, you will calculate mean for that. When you have the variable available with your independent variable, for that you will calculate your x bar, mean of that particular variable. Okay, so now see, it's written in a simpler form. Beta 1, we call them as coefficients. So beta 1 is equal to covariance of xy upon variance of x. And it's also called as slope. Intercept is our beta naught, which is equal to y bar minus beta 1 x bar. Now we will have a practical example for this. Now see, here you are having weight and you are having height. Now, if we have student 1 of your class who has a weight of 50 kgs and his height is, let's suppose, 63 inches, and we have another student whose weight is 65 kgs and his height is 72 inches. Then we have one more student whose weight is 63 kgs and height is 71 inches. So likewise, we are having data on these. I think these are 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We have data available on 10 students. For student 1, we have weight as well as height. Student 2, we have weight as well as height. So similarly for other students. Now, just now we were discussing about the formula for this. If we go back to this one. Now see, here for beta 1, to calculate beta 1, you have in the numerator part, you have xi minus x bar and you have yi minus y bar. And in denominator, you have xi minus x bar square, summation of xi minus x bar square, and it's under root. So now, depending on this formula, we have to see what the formula demands. The formula demands we need to calculate from every observation, we need to subtract x bar, that's xi minus x bar. Then from every observation of our dependent variable, that's y, we need to subtract y bar from yi. That's what we'll be doing here. Now see, the first step is we will generate a column based on the available data on weight and height. Weight is denoted by y. Y is dependent variable is always denoted by y. So we have weight and we have height. Weight will be denoted by y, height will be denoted by x. First, we will calculate the mean for y bar, and we will calculate the mean for x. So mean for x will be denoted by x bar, mean for y will be denoted by y bar. When you calculate the mean, y bar, it's 58.3. Now this 58.3 will be subtracted from all the observations of y. So the first one is 50 minus 58.3. You get the answer is, the result is minus 8.3. Then for the second observation, 65, from 65, you will subtract 58.3. From all the observations of these y, you will subtract the mean of y bar. That's 58.3. You will subtract from all this. So you will get a column of y minus y bar. Then similarly, we will go for x minus x bar. That means when you calculate the mean x bar, that's 66.1, you will subtract this mean 66.1 from all the values of your x, that's height, the column height, that's the second column. So the first value is 63 minus 66.1, you get 3.1. This similarly for all the observations, you will get your, you will subtract them and you will get the column of x minus x bar. Now after this, what we will do is we will generate one more column, that's yi minus y bar multiplied by xi minus x bar. So yi minus y bar is your column third and xi minus x bar is your column fourth. So these observations you will multiply. That means you will multiply minus 8.3 multiplied by minus 3.1. You will get a result of 25.73. Similarly, you will multiply 6.7 with 5.9. You will get 39.3. So that's how you calculate, you generate this 1, 2, 3, 4, column number 5, yi minus y bar multiplied by xi minus x bar. That's 25.73, 39.53, 23.03, and likewise. Now, when you sum up this column fifth, when you sum up this column, you will see at the bottom, we have used the sign summation. It's used for when we sum up the values, we use the sign, the Greek symbol. This is called a summation sign. So it's yi minus y bar, sum of yi minus y bar into xi minus y x bar. You get 148.7. So this is the numerator part. This 148.7 is the numerator part of this slide. That means this one. Summation of xi minus x bar, yi minus y bar. This is the numerator part you have calculated. That's 148.7. Now you have to calculate the denominator part. For that, what you need to do is, for column number column fourth, that's your xi minus x bar, you need to square that. That means minus 3.1 into minus 3.1, that will be your 9.61. Then 5.9 into 5.9 will be 34.81. So likewise, you will square all the values of column number 4, that's xi minus x bar. So when you do that and you sum up all these values in the bottom, it's summation of xi minus x bar square, it's 144.9. So now you have got the numerator part as 148.7 and denominator part as 144.9. Now you will divide it and you will get beta 1. Now, when you put these values in this formula, beta 1 is equal to 148.7 divided by 144.9, you get beta 1 is equal to 1.02. Now, once you have beta 1 with you, that's 1.02, you need to calculate beta naught. So beta naught is, the formula for beta naught is y bar minus beta 1 x bar. Now, y bar you have calculated. Y bar is here, column first. For weight, this is your y bar, that's 58.3, and for height, the x bar is 66.1. So these values we will substitute in this equation, 58.3 plus 1.02. So 1.02 is your beta 1, because beta naught is equal to beta y bar, mean of dependent variable minus beta 1 into mean of x bar. So you have 1.02 multiplied by 66.1. 66.1 is your mean of x bar. When you solve the simple equation, you will get beta naught is equal to minus 9.122. Now this is now your equation. Yi hat is equal to minus 9.122 plus 1.02 of xi. Now see, this was our equation here. Now we were here, in fact. We had y hat is equal to beta naught plus beta 1 x bar. So we had to calculate the value for beta naught and we had to calculate value for beta 1. So when we calculated this, we will put all these values in this equation and we come here. So this becomes your estimated regression equation. Now, the beauty of this regression equation is, as I said in the beginning, it's called as prediction equation also. What we mean by prediction equation. Now, if you have any student whose height is not known in your data set, for example, if we go back to the data set, Now, if you see your height, second column, if you are interested, because these are your all observed values. By observed, we mean that you have I have calculated calculated by using the measuring scale the weight of a student as well as his height. So these all 10 values are observed ones. These are real data values recorded from the students. But now, if I am interested to know what will be the value of a student, now see, for height X, you don't have any value corresponding to the height of having 64 inches. Do we have? Do we have any value for 64 height? If we take column second, which is height, do we have any? Now, if I'm interested to know what will be the height of a student whose height is, what will be the weight of a student whose height is 64 inches? Do we have any value here? We don't have, right? So what we can do is, by using this regression equation, we can estimate the value for that student whose height is not known. So we can predict it. How we can predict it? We can just substitute the value. We have established the relation. You have constructed an equation, which is your yi hat minus 9.122 to plus 1.02 xi. Now, xi is your independent variable. You can substitute any value for this xi so that you can get the estimated value for that particular value, which is not known to you. Now, for 64, what can be the estimated? As I said, it's estimated, it's not exact. So you can get a rough idea that what can be the weight of the student whose height is 64 inches. So the weight comes here to be 56.1 kgs by using this regression equation. So that's why we call it that prediction equation. We can predict the things by using this model. So this is your regression model. Estimate your regression coefficients, that's beta naught and beta 1. Place them in this equation, substitute the values for xi, for which the values are not known to you. You will get the estimated value for that. So do you have any questions till now for this simple linear regression? Anybody? Is it okay?
Yes.
Oh. Okay, now we will come to correlation part. In correlation, what we have, the difference between correlation and regression is, in regression, we know which one is dependent variable and which one is independent variable. In correlation, we don't have any such criteria, which one is dependent and which one is independent. We just try to find out whether there exists a relationship between the two, whether the two variables are related or not. That's what our motive is. And if they are related, how strong the relationship is. That's what we do in correlation. See, the correlation measures the magnitude and direction of the relationship between two or more variables. The correlation can be either positive or it can be the negative correlation. Now, what we mean by positive correlation and what we mean by negative correlation, that we'll be discussing. See, these dotted graphs, we call them a scatter plot graph. This is, before going for the correlation, we first of all plot the data on this graph. These are your data points, these dot, dot, dot. Now from the scatter plot, you get an idea. Now see on the left side, it's the linear relationship. You can see from these dots that there is some upward trend in the first graph. Then on the first column, the second graph there is some downward trend. Right? Now, on the right side, we have curvilinear relationships. There is a curve. When you see these dots give you the idea that there is some curvilinear relationship between the variables, these two. So one is linear, one is non-linear. By the linear, we mean that there is a straight line relationship. Now, correlation, first of all, I said that the correlation can be it can be positive or it can be negative. By positive and negative, now see this positive correlation, negative correlation. What we mean by positive correlation, negative correlation? By positive correlation, we mean that if we have variable 1, if it changes, let's suppose the values of the variable 1, it increases. Then what happens to the values of the second variable? Like we had weight and height. If height goes on increasing, weight will also increase. So the relationship, such type of relationship we call as positive correlation. If height will decrease, weight will also decrease. So they are directly, related to each other. Such correlation we call as positive correlation. Now, negative correlation. Negative correlation means if one variable increases, the second variable will decrease. That correlation we call as negative correlation. So correlation is further, of 3 types. We have simple correlation, we have partial correlation, and we have multiple correlation. Like we had in regression, simple regression and multiple regression. By simple regression, we meant that we had one independent and one dependent variable. In multiple regression, we had one dependent and more than one independent variable. We may have 2 variables as independent, 3 variables as independent. Similarly, we have in correlation simple and multiple. By simple, we have only 2 variables. Let's suppose height and weight. But if you have multiple, means you have age, weight, and height. So when you have more than 2 variables, we call it as multiple correlation. And when you have only 2 variables, we call it as simple correlation. Now we'll be discussing about this partial also. So let me first come to this slide. Now for simple correlation, as I said that we have only 2 variables, and simple correlation has a value. Remember that the range of correlation coefficient, it ranges from -1 to +1. It can't be outside this range. If it's outside this range, that means there is some, problem with the calculation. By -1 to +1, as I said, the correlation can be either negative or it can be positive. If you get a correlation of, let's suppose, a value of 0.78, that means it's a positive correlation. But if you get a correlation value as -0.78, that means the correlation is negative. So I will repeat again, by positive correlation, we mean that if one variable increases, second variable also increases. If one variable decreases, second variable will also decrease. But in negative correlation, if one variable will increase, second variable will decrease. Or if one will decrease, second will also decrease. So there is an inverse correlation between the variables. By partial correlation, we mean, now if you have 3 variables, which we call as, and we study the correlation between them, we call it as multiple correlation. But if you have 3 variables and you study the relationship between 2 variables, eliminating the common relationship of remaining variables with both of them, that means if we have variable 1 as age, variable 2 as weight, a variable 3 as height, we will study the relationship between age and weight, keeping height as constant. Or we will study the relationship between weight and height, keeping age as constant. So keeping one of the variable constant or eliminating the effect of that variable, we call that as partial correlation. Its limits also ranges from -1 to +1. For multiple correlation, the degree of linear relation between 3 or more than 3 variables, we call it as multiple correlation, and its limits are between 0 and 1. Now, what's the formula for this? See, this correlation was in fact given by Karl Pearson, the name of the scientist. So the formula is after his name, Karl Pearson's correlation coefficient. The formula for Karl Pearson's correlation coefficient is covariance of xy upon square root of variance of x and variance of y. Now, if we write that in terms of this expanded form, we write it as summation of xi minus x bar into yi minus y bar, which is your covariance, which we already discussed in the regression part. Then in the denominator, you have summation of xi minus x bar square and summation of yi minus by bar square. So this is a formula for simple correlation. Now these are the formula which we use for partial and multiple correlation. So I don't think we'll be having much time to discuss it, but just for your idea how the formula look for partial and for multiple. Now the properties for correlation is that it's a unit-free measure. It's denoted by R and it doesn't have any unit. As I said, the correlation may be 0.78, so there is no unit for it. 0.78. It's a unit-free one. So its range already discussed. It ranges from -1 to +1, and it's independent of change of origin and scale. Now, what we mean by change of origin and scale is if we subtract any constant, from all the observations, we call it change of origin. Or if we subtract or add, any constant observation, we call it change of origin. If we divide any observation by a constant, we call it change of scale. So these are the correlation coefficient is independent of that. But when we have to interpret the results of the correlation coefficient, we use coefficient of determination. By coefficient of determination, we mean that we use R square instead of R. R is used to denote correlation coefficient, but if we square that R, that is R square, that's called as coefficient of determination. What we mean by that is, for example, if we have a correlation coefficient of 0.6, now if we square 0.6, it may become your 0.36, right? So it will be your coefficient of determination. If we multiply it by 100, you will get 36%. So we said that there is a 36%, they are correlated 36%. If there is a change in one variable, it will give a change of 36% in the next variable. That's what we mean by coefficient of determination. So coefficient of determination or coefficient of alienation, these are expressed as percentages. Then we have, I think we will skip this Spearman's rank correlation. We don't think we have much time now. So if you have any questions regarding correlation or regression, feel free to ask. We have 3 minutes. We can, use it for your question answers. Hello. Hello, are you there? Do you have any questions? We have two minutes left.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, so we'll be meeting again at 12:10. We'll be having one more session at 12:10. So see you after the break. Okay. Now the next topic which we have, that is statistical inference. Now, yesterday we discussed about, the steps which we use, various steps in statistics. That's we start from data collection. Once the data is collected, the next step which we do is we go for summarization of the data, right? The data, raw data which you have, we try to summarize that in the form of either graphs or in the form of those single values like mean, median, mode. After that, once the data is summarized, we need to analyze the data. So the analysis part of the data comes after analysis. We go for the inference part. By inference, we mean we try to interpret the results. So statistical inference is a portion in which we go for the analysis as well as the interpretation of your results. So we first analyze your data, then we interpret. But again, we will, I will repeat it here. As I said, in statistics, we deal with the samples. And on the basis of the sample, we draw our inference, we draw our conclusion, we draw our decisions for the population. Now, what do we mean by this statistical inference? It's a procedure by which we reach a conclusion about a population on the basis of the information contained in the sample. So you have a sample with you, you have a data collected on that sample. So the information contained in that sample is utilized to draw the inference for our population. So that's what we mean by statistical inference. So in statistical inference, we have hypothesis testing. Now, what's this hypothesis? What we mean by a hypothesis? Now, if you have two drugs with you, or you have to, make a statement, or if we have two cricket teams with us, we have to make a statement that which we have to test which team is better. So we will start with a statement that both teams are equal. When you say that, so you are making a statement that both teams are equal. So when you say that both teams are equal, that means you are not biased towards any team. You start with a statement that they are equal, and then you will, go for the testing. By testing, what we have to do is these two teams have to play a match. Only after that, we can say, once they play the match, we can then say, whatever the statement we had made, that the two teams are equal. So once that match ends, we can say which team is, whether the both teams are equal or a particular team is better than the other. So same is the case with the, samples. If we have two samples with us, we can say whether both these two samples are same or they are different. If we have two drugs, by sample, we mean that you have to, you are testing some methods, you are testing certain drugs, you are testing certain new things. So when you test a drug on a particular sample and you test a second drug on a second sample, so we say that whether these two samples are same or different, whether these two drugs are same or different. So this hypothesis testing, it aids the clinician or researcher or administrator in reaching a conclusion concerning a population by examining a sample from that population. So hypothesis, what the hypothesis means, it's a statement about one or more population. So this hypothesis is of two types. One is null hypothesis and one is alternate hypothesis. The null hypothesis is the hypothesis which is to be tested. So when you have a data set with you, for example, you have conducted some experiment, you have conducted some research on, let's suppose you may have only one drug, or you may have two drugs, and you have to test whether this existing drug is better than the new drug is better than the existing one, or you may have two drugs with you. We may have to test whether these two drugs are same or different. For that, you will conduct an experiment in your lab, generate the data, and when you have to analyze the data, you will set up with a hypothesis whether these two drugs are same or different. So the hypothesis which you will make is one hypothesis we call as null hypothesis. This is the hypothesis which you are going to test. Whether you will accept this hypothesis or reject this, that will be decided only once the data is analyzed. Then you have one more hypothesis, we call it as an alternate hypothesis. This is a research hypothesis. Null hypothesis is denoted by H0, and alternate hypothesis is either denoted by HA or H1. Okay, so in hypothesis, we have different tests, because as I said, you are making some statement. Now, whether your statement is right or wrong, for that, you need test it. So the test which we use is, we call it as a t-test. Maybe you may have heard the name of this t-test. Have you ever heard the name of this t-test before? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Have you heard the name of t-test before?
Yes, sir.
Okay. वही है, which, you know, normally we call this t-test. It was given by the scientists who published it under the name of students. So that's why it's called as students t-test. Okay, so this t-test, you know, there are under this t-test is under this t-test there are different types of, you know, tests. We have one sample t-test, we have two sample independent t-test, we have peer t-test. So we will be discussing these, you know, different types of tests. So first we will discuss one sample t-test. By one sample t-test, we mean that you are having one sample. By one sample, we mean, let's suppose if you are having a particular drug, a new drug you have, right? So this drug you will give to, for example, you will test it on 10 or 15 patients. Like nowadays we have, you know, we are under COVID and the companies are trying their new drugs. So what they do is they test that drug on, for example, 1,000 or 100 patients, right? So once they try that drug, they collect the data, then at the end they say, so that becomes their one sample. But if they are using two drugs, one is, for example, the drug developed by the India, the second drug developed by the Russia. So then it becomes a two sample case, because one sample will be tested on 100 patients, you're receiving the drug developed by India. The second will be the drug developed that will be given to the patients developed by the Russia. So these becomes, now it becomes a two sample case. So if we study only a single drug which is developed by the India, it becomes a one sample case. So first we will discuss about one sample one. So one sample one is used to test if the population mean is equal to the specified value. For using the sample t-test, the condition is the population standard deviation is unknown. And other assumptions are the variable is continuous, which we discussed yesterday, what we mean by continuous variable. These are some other assumptions, like the data is normally distributed, the observations are independent, these are outliers. So first we need to check those, you know, assumptions, only then we can use the t-test. Once these assumptions are fulfilled, we will go for t-test. Otherwise, we have to look for some other, you know, other things. Now, here we have an example. The following data are the oxygen uptake, which is in ml, during incubation of a random sample of 15 cell suspensions. So these are your data, 4.0, 4.1, 4.1. So this is your oxygen uptake ml during incubation of a random sample of 15 cell suspensions. Now the question which we need to answer is, does these data provide sufficient evidence at 0.05? It's usually, with this 0.05, we call it as level of significance, which usually decided as, it's usually decided at 5%. So 5% means 0.05. So does these data provide sufficient evidence at 0.05 level of significance that the population mean is not 4 ml? So we have a single value that's 4.5 ml. It's, already established that we have an existing one where the population mean is 4.5. Now we have some new sample for which the data readings are as 4.0, 4.1, 4.5. We have to check whether the values, these are inconsistent with the value of 4.0. So it's a one sample case. We will start, as I said, we will start with a hypothesis. You have null hypothesis, it is denoted by H naught, and it will be that mu is equal to mu naught. Mu naught is your specified value, and alternate one will be they are not equal. So as I said, we need to test certain assumptions for this. So these are the these graphics, they are used to test the assumption of normality, whether the data follows the normality or not. As I said, first we have to check the assumptions, only then we can go, we can proceed with the t-test. So this is the normal curve. Now this is the formula for using the one sample t-test. It is t equal to x bar minus mu naught by standard deviation and divided by under root of n. In this formula, your x bar is the sample mean from the data. Mu zero is the hypothesized value for the true population mean that's given by the research question. SD is the sample standard deviation from the data, and n is the sample size. Now, just now we had an example that was here. So for this data, see, we have the values for this is 4.0, 4.1, 4.5, 3.2, and the last observation is 2.9. So for this data of one sample one, in fact, we have the only one sample, you will calculate mean for this data. So I hope you know how to calculate mean. So that becomes your x bar. Now, in the research question, it is, does these data provide sufficient evidence at the 0.05 level of significance that the population mean is not mu 4.0? So this 4.0 is your mu naught. So we will place these values in this formula. Now, 4.98 is the x bar. That's you have calculated the mean for those data values. So the mean comes out to be 4.98. Then it's given that for the population, we have a mean of 4. So that's your x bar minus mu naught divided by S standard deviation. This standard deviation you will also calculate for the same exam, for the same data set. This 4.0, 4.1, 4.5 up to 2.9. So for this data set, you will calculate your mean as well as you will calculate the standard deviation. And this is how many observations we have. That becomes our n. So, sorry. So here we are. So you will calculate mean for this. You will calculate standard deviation for this example. And you are having n, that's 25 observations you have. Solve this simple equation, you will get a value of 3.1. Now this 3.1 value is your, calculated t. This calculated t is to be compared with a tabulated t. Tabulated t is always given in the textbooks, or we can have nowadays, we have the computer softwares, they give, it's readily available. But if you are doing it yourself manually, then you have to compare this calculated t, that is 3.1, it's to be calculated with the tabulated t. So if you are this calculated t, which you have calculated as 3.1, if it is greater than your tabulated t, then you will reject your null hypothesis, and you will conclude that both these means are not same. So these are a few more examples. Now, these are just, for your this understanding. The one more type of example where we have one sample t-test. You have the following are the SBP, that is systolic blood pressure of 12 patients who are undergoing some drug therapy for hypertension. So the systolic blood pressure values have been recorded, that is 183, 152, 178, and so on up to 158. Now, because these patients are under drug therapy, and after that systolic blood pressure has been recorded. Now, can we conclude on the basis of these data that the population mean is less than 165? This because so you are being given a standard value for this, that is 165, and we need to conclude whether these values are inconsistent with that. So this is one more example for one sample t-test. Now for two sample t-test, we have, as I said, you may have to test two drugs, and you have to compare these two drugs whether they are same or different. You will try drug one on a particular set of patients, which will be your sample one, and drug two you will use on another set of patients, that will be your sample two, and you will be interested to know whether these two drugs are same or different. So we will use two sample t-test that. So it's two sample independent t-test. Here further we have two cases. One is whether the variances are equal or they are unequal, and we have pair t-test. So we will be discussing these. So this is assumptions. These are your now again you will start with the hypothesis here, because you are having two samples. Your null hypothesis will be, which I said is denoted by H0. It is mu1 will be equal to mu2, and alternate one will be mu1 is not equal to mu2. So we will test which one hypothesis is correct. So you have to make your decision at the end of the study. So again, we will first, try our graphics on this, because we have to test whether these, we have to check the assumptions of the data, whether it fulfills or not. So these are our two cases for two sample independent t-test. On the left side is your case for equal variances, and on the right side is your case for unequal variances. Because as I said, you are having two drugs, you are having two samples. So you will be calculating variance for sample 1, as well as you have to calculate the variance for sample 2. First, you have to check whether these samples are equal, these variances are equal or not. If they are equal, we will use the formula on the left side. And if it is unequal, then we will use the formula on the right side. The difference between the two is the numerator part is same in both the formula. It's x bar 1 minus x bar 2. And the denominator, it is here SP. SP is nothing but your pooled variance. You are pooling when your variances are equal, we can pool it. So how we pool it is, that's on the left side, that the bottom line, that's SP equal to N1 minus 1 into S1 square. S1 square is nothing but your variance of first sample. Then N2 minus 1 into S2 square. S2 square is nothing but the variance of second sample divided by N1 plus N2 minus 2. So N1 and N2, they are nothing but the size of sample 1 and size of sample 2. So if they are unequal, then we need not to go for pooling. We will just directly, use S1 and S2. That's on the right side of this, and go for the analysis. Now, how do we check whether these, that we have, whether the variances are equal or unequal? How do we check that? We check that by using the F-test. F-test formula for F-test is larger sample variance divided by smaller sample variance. Because when you have two variances with you, S1 and S2 square, S1 square and S2 square, out of these two, whichever will be larger, that is to be kept in the numerator part. So that's why we call it as larger sample variance divided by smaller sample variance. Sometimes S1 square can be larger, sometimes S2 square can be larger. So whichever is larger is to be placed in the numerator part. Then here you will calculate the F. If F calculated is greater than F tabulated, then we will reject our null hypothesis that variances are unequal. Now see, this is an example of two sample t-test. The data consists of two samples. We have non-smokers and we have smokers. And we are recording the lung destructive index score. Those who are smoking, what's the stats of their lung on the basis of the destructive index score, and those who don't smoke, what's their score of lungs. Can we, now what we have to answer? We have to answer, can we conclude that smokers in general have greater lung damage as measured by this destructive index than do non-smokers? So we have to answer this question. So we will be analyzing these two samples. Sample 1 is for smokers, sample 2 is for non-smokers. So see, as we discussed about the formula, it is x bar 1 minus x bar 2. X bar 1 minus x bar 2 means for non-smokers, you will calculate mean for non-smokers, that will be your x bar 1. You will calculate mean for smokers, that will be your x bar 2. Similarly, you will calculate variance for non-smokers, that's your S1 square. Then you will calculate the variance for smokers, that will be your S2 square. Once you have mean and variances of both these samples with you, you can place them in this formula and solve it. X bar 1 minus x bar 2 and SP this, whatever this is. solve it, you get, see the calculation of stats is x bar s, that's 17.5. X bar s here means mean for smokers, then SS, which is 4.7, that means standard deviation for smokers. Then you have X bar NS, that's mean for non-smokers, that's 12.4. Then standard deviation for non-smokers, that's 4.84. So since we assume that the variances are equal, we take the pooled variance that becomes that comes out to be 21.19. Substitute all these values in the formula. When you do this, elementary calculation, you get a t value. That's where you calculate the t that comes out to be 2.65. And tabulated value, which I said is given in the textbooks, it is 2.03. And the statistical decision is we have to reject H naught. Why we have to reject H naught? Because your calculated T is greater than tabulated T. Your calculated T is 2.65. Your tabulated T is 2.03. So calculated is greater than tabulated. We will reject our null hypothesis. By rejecting the null hypothesis, we mean that these two samples are not same. They are different. So when you reject the null, that means you are accepting the alternate. In null, you are saying that they are same. We are rejecting it, and it means that we are accepting the alternate, which means that they are not same. So conclusion is, as measured by the index used in the study, smokers have greater lung damage than non-smokers. So this is the interpretation part of this two-sample t-test. Now, the two-sample t-test which we discussed, that was the two-sample independent t-test. But sometimes we may have to use the, when the samples will not be independent. So at that time, we use a test which we call as paired t-test. Here, the samples are not independent. Now, what we mean by paired t-test is you have a pair of observations, which are dependent. This t-test is usually applied when you have, something like before and after. By before and after, we mean, let's suppose if I am on some, weight gain drug. So how we collect the data is, before taking the drug, my weight will be recorded. And then after taking the drug, my weight will be again recorded. So I'm the same, the sample unit is same, just the observations are being taken at 2 points of time. One is before, one is after. So the observations are paired. In that case, what we do, or we have sometimes, we have to test whether the coaching has if coaching classes has any impact on the performance of the students. So what we do is we take the exam before coaching of a student, and once he undergoes coaching, then we will again take his exam and we will check whether coaching has an impact on his performance or not. So the observations will be paired at that time. The observations will not be independent. At that case, we use the test which we call as paired t-test. So this is the formula for paired t-test. T is equal to d bar upon SD upon under root of n. So we will see what this d bar means, and SD means in this example, we have an example for this. Now see, this is the data set. The following are the pre and post training scores made by the primary parent on the test. May we conclude on the basis of these data that the training program increases knowledge of behavior modification principles. Now see, you have pre and post. So before the score before training is 7, 6, 10, 16. But once the training has been done, once the guy undergoes training, the post scores are, after training, for the same guy who had pre-7, now the post is 11. Now the next guy who had pre-score as 6, the next after training, it is post score is 14. So similarly, you are having the data points for all the cases. Now DI means we are taking the difference. That's 11 minus 7 is 4. 14 minus 6 is 8, 16 minus 10 is 6. So you generate this row of DI, which we call as difference. And for this row, that is 4, 8, 6, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 4, you will calculate the mean. So that will be your D bar. Similarly, you will calculate the standard deviation for this DI row. So once you have these two items with you, D bar and SD, you place that in that formula. This is D bar. D bar means now the mean for that difference, which is on the bottom row. Place those, and SD, you will calculate the SD for that DI. That means for 4, 8, 6, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 4. For this row, you will calculate SD also. Place these values in this formula, and N is your number of observations. Do this simple calculation. That is, it will be your 3.3. That's your D bar divided by standard deviation. That's your this 2.4, and under root of this N, that comes out to be 2.69. So when your calculated T is greater than the tabulated T, it will be rejected. Here T calculated is 2.69, T tabulated is 2.53. So here calculated T is greater than tabulated T, we will reject our null hypothesis, which implies that the training increases the knowledge of behavior modification. So this is the inference, this is the interpretation part of this example. So as I said, that we need to first check the assumptions, whether the data follows the assumptions which we have to test before using the t-test. If the assumptions are not met, then the test is not valid. Now what to do? What we do is either we transform the data if the assumptions are not met. If they are violated, we will either transform the data. There are different types of transformation techniques which we use. Either we square the data, or we use take square root of this, or we will go for log transformation, or we will go for arcsine transformation. If we want to transform the data, then we have a different class of tests. We call them as non-parametric tests. We will go for the non-parametric tests. So thank you. Do you have any questions regarding this testing of hypothesis, in which we discuss t-test and other types of t-test? Hello, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So do you have any question?
Limitation है इस टेस्ट के कोई?
Sorry?
Sir, the limitation of this test.
Your voice is breaking.
Sir, T test के कोई limitations हैं?
इसमें limitation यही है, if your assumptions are not violated, this will be, the results won't be this. That means if your assumption of normality is violated, then you need to look for some other things. वही इसमें limitations यही होता है, assumptions के limitations कि if your assumptions are not fulfilled, only then we can't use this.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Anybody having any other question other than this? Feel free to ask. Okay, welcome. So shall we end, or? Oh, sorry? हाँ, आज 2 थे. हाँ. So we have discussed in t-test, we discussed 1 sample case, we discussed 2 sample cases, right? Now, if we have 3 samples, what can we do then? So what to do if we have 3 samples? If we have to compare 3 drugs or 3, whatever the case may be, 3 methods, 3 this, any. Shall we go for t-test then? उसके लिए क्या करेंगे फिर हम?
Transform the data.
मगर ट्रांसफॉर्म करो डेटा सैंपल रोजन तो इतरे sample ma gasan kam if we transform the data. Number of samples will be still 3 or 4 or jo bhi hai. I mean to say if we have more than 2 samples, let's suppose we have 3 samples or 4 samples, that means if we have to compare 3 drugs or 4 drugs, what to do then? Shall we first compare drug 1 with drug 2, then we will compare drug 1 with drug 3, then we will compare drug 2 with drug 3. We will perform 3 times the t-test. So if you have, no, that has its own, problems. So at that time, what we do is we call that technique as analysis of variance technique, ANOVA. को short में हम ANOVA बोलते हैं, analysis of variance. So we use analysis of variance technique when we have to compare more than 2 samples. Okay, so remember it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Allah Hafiz, take care.
Allah Hafiz.
Okay.